Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. MC Mora here. In today's video we will be making a tier list ranking the critical art animations in Street Fighter V. This is not obviously judging how effective or ineffective a certain critical art is, more like how cool it is and judging it based on the overall flair. Now certainly some characters have multiple versions of their critical art, for example Ryu, who we are gonna start off with. Obviously Ryu has his normal critical art and he has the V-Trigger 1 powered up version, and for this character we will be picking the critical art that is powered up, right? It's supposed to be the superior version, and for me Ryu is very much in middle of the road. Ryu's super is obviously Denjin Hadouken. It's a powered up fireball. I like that in some stages the lighting on the startup animation can look really intense and can look really good, especially on the darker stages. But as a super, it's very standard. It's really nothing too amazing, to be honest. Next up, let's check out the number 1 Chunner, right? Now I am kinda conflicted on Chun-Li, but I will say Chun-Li is also a B tier super. I think her super is very standard, but I don't like the cinematography of it. I think it was done better in the previous games. I don't like how the camera is checking her out in the opponent. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like she's actually hitting them, you know. I don't know, I'm not a big fan of it, although I do like the end screen, but I do think Chun-Li had better looking versions of the same super in other games. I like the Street Fighter 4 version where she would kick them in the air and then she would come down like a flower and her skirt would be all around. It looks really cool in that game. Next up we got Mika. Mika is a tricky one, and I'm gonna sound super stupid, but hear me out on this one. Mika is either a B tier super or an A tier super. If you have the PC version and you can mod the game so that you can bring back the old animation and the ass slap, Mika gets to be an A tier super. I do think the ass slap animation at the start actually adds a ton of flair to the super. It just adds a ton of personality. The fact that you can't see it and you don't really know what Mika is doing kinda hurts it a lot. But I think the ass slap at the start, it's a massive taunt. It's like, come on, I'm gonna fuck you with my ass. You know, it looks insanely good. So I do think the restart animation or the freeze animation or flash animation or whatever, the uncensored one, makes it a lot better. So I'm gonna put it in the A tier, given that this is what I use personally. Rashid, I think, is a B tier super. Rashid actually looks really nice. You don't see a lot of what he's doing. It's just like it's like a tornado and the other guy is getting hit. But I do like the end screen when he keeps kicking. That looks pretty nice. But you know, I think he could have had a better super in my opinion. I think he could have done more with Rashid. That's not bad. Alex is certainly an S tier super. Alex certainly have one of the coolest super animations in the game. I love there is a certain shot there where he is like flying while they're carrying them, and you can see them opening their mouths and they look super scared as Alex is about to slam them to the ground. Obviously the Razor's Edge is like one of the coolest wrestling moves ever, and the fact that when you KO someone with it, that they land them on the ground, it's a fantastic super, to be honest. Like easily one of the best ones in the game. Next up we got the Akuma. And Akuma, obviously his critical art is the first one. I'm not a big fan of it, so I'm not just gonna consider it, to be honest. Raging Demon though is pretty cool. And I'm gonna put it in the A tier, or let's put it at the very top of A. One of the best things about the Raging Demon in Street Fighter V is that you get a glimpse of what Akuma is doing. Typically in many of the previous games, he would just activate the Raging Demon, the screen would go black, you get the information or the idea that Akuma is hitting them, and then bam, they're down. I love in Street Fighter V that they give you a hint, just enough, They don't spoil the whole thing, but they give you an idea of what's going on, and I love it so much. One thing that made me prefer the Akuma one to the Kage one is that you don't see the entire thing. I hate that you get to see almost the entire thing in Kage's, which kinda reduces it in my opinion. I think Akuma's one is better because of that. Next up we got Menat, and where is Menat? Yeah, she's low. Menat is alright. I'm gonna put Menat in the A tier. Obviously Menat is a very cute waifu, so her super is pretty much reflective of that. I like that she's like dancing as the orb is hitting you. She's not really doing anything, but it looks pretty cute. It's a pretty cool super. I don't have much to add to it, and it doesn't like it doesn't wow me, but it looks funny, right? So for that I do think, and it fits Menat obviously. She has a playful nature, so I do think it's a pretty cool super for Menat. Next up we got Falke, the Poink. And I know there are so many players who hate Falke's super, but I personally think it's kind of funny. Like I will take an animated critical art, like a cinematic animated critical art that looks kind of stupid, over a non-cinematic super personally. I mean, for the most part, the non-cinematics one can be really cool, but I do think Falke actually have a pretty, it kind of look fun. Like obviously, for everything that happens in the Street Fighter universe, for her to just launch you and then point you on the head, it looks super lame, but it does fit with her personality. And I don't know, there is some fun to be had with it. I really think it is funny in a weird way. Alright, next up we got Kage. And like I said previously, I'm not the biggest fan of Kage's Raging Demon. I'm gonna put him in the A tier. I'm not the biggest fan of Kage's Raging Demon because you get to see the whole thing, but I love his Shoryuken super. I'm one of the few people I feel like who likes the Shoryuken super more with Kage. And there is this one phase, like there is this one frame where he is punching your shin and he's looking at you and your character is in pain, and it looks fantastic. One of my favorite things about the Shoryuken super in this game, and you have to consider, Kage is the only character, the only Shoto with a Shoryuken super in Street Fighter V, right? Like in Street Fighter 4, Ryu had a Shoryuken, Gouken had a Shoryuken, Ken had a Shoryuken. Here, only Kage have a Shoryuken, and I guess Sakura, but it's like he's the only one who has like a pure Shoryuken super. And I love that like their jaws doesn't grow up. It doesn't look as silly as the Misto Shoryuken did in Street Fighter 4. So they took the same super, put it on the evil character, which I do think is the better choice. Obviously it's not as dramatic as Evil Ryu's super from Street Fighter 4, but I still think it is a pretty cool looking super. I really like it. Next up we got Gill. S tier. Easily S tier. Like, Gill's super, and I do think it's even better than Alex's. I do think as of right now, from everyone who got so far, Gill is one of the best looking supers in the game. Gill's super is, you know, Gill's super is like some Final Fantasy boss bullshit. Like, he turns into a Final Fantasy character, and I love the startup line, the animation. It's God's will. It's like, oh, it's God's will. You're gonna get fucked up now. And then he grow up the wings, and then the screen goes white. It's very unique in how it's delivered. You don't really know exactly what he's doing. It just seems like he is destroying you. And this makes it look fantastic. I absolutely love Gill's super, to be honest. And Seraphic Wing! The entire voice-over delivery for Gill is S tier, to be honest. Gill is such an awesome character. I really hope they will make him better. Gill is awesome. Next up we got Rose, and Rose for me goes into the top of B. It's very average. I do like the scarf attacks at the start. I think this looks cool. It has like some gymnastic elements to it, and I do like that. The actual super itself after that, where she just throws you down there and then does the explosion, I mean, I guess it's fine, but I think it could have been a little bit better. I don't know. It doesn't feel as impactful as it should. Something is missing with it. I hope it had more impact, but I think it is a little bit lacking. This is next, and I like this super. I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Obviously, when you do the powered up version, you get the like he splats you on the wall, and it's always fun when the character does something extra on his super. So I do like that little Easter egg when you finish up with it. I do think that looks pretty amazing. It doesn't look as silly as the Street Fighter 4 version, so I do like that as well. And again, one of the characters whose the voice acting during the critical art sells it. It makes it even look a lot better. So this actually gets to be in the A rank. Poison. Alright, so hear me out on this one. This super is criminally underrated, in my opinion. I think people generally don't really appreciate how amazing Poison's super is. If we're actually gonna put these, you know, maybe we'll rank them later. I don't want to make it like a ranked tier list, but hey, let's get back to Poison. Poison's super is so good for multiple reasons. The first one is that there is this one frame when she pulls you in, and the cameras will, like the camera from the Poison super, the camera is showing you first the point of view of the character who's getting beat up, right? So there is this one frame where like Poison is standing over you, and it's just like you're gonna get wrecked. For a character who's using a whip, and you know, it's all about domination and all of that, it's such an amazing looking shot. Like this one shot sells the entire super for me. And obviously when you put her into the Japanese voice acting, you get the ora 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 ora, which is obviously amazing. Like anytime you get to hear a character saying ora ora in their super, you know that super is top tier, right? And then the bunt at the end where she bunts and kicks your head off, that looks amazing. Poison super is criminally underrated in my opinion. Maybe it's biased because I like Poison and I play as a character, but it's really nice. I think it's really nice. And speaking of bias, I wish this one was better. You know what? Unfortunate. I wish Cody had a better super. I really did. Cody had some of the coolest supers in some of the older games, but his super in Street Fighter 5 is really lame. Like gameplay wise, it's actually a pretty functional super, and I do like the line of "believe it or not, I'm really busy." Like I love that voice line, but at the end of the day, it's such a lackluster super for Cody, especially considering what he had previously. So for me, it just, I don't know. I put it in the D tier. Like I think it's really lame. Like it doesn't even have like some intense. Like one of the things that makes the reuse super a little bit better is that depending on the lighting, it can look really intense. It can look really cool. And obviously something like the Kamehameha pose, where like he's about to throw the fireball, that's just an iconic pose that always looks really good. So this puts Ryu over the top, right? But with Cody, he doesn't even get that. It's just a criminal upper. So I think it could have been a lot better. Zeku for me goes into the S tier. I think Zeku easily have one of the best supers in the game. It's obviously a throwback to Guy's super from Street Fighter 4, and it's also a Ragnarok super for Striders. This is one of the things, this is one of the references that actually goes over people's head. If you look at Strider's super from the Marvel games, this is pretty much his Ragnarok super. So I do love that a lot. Like they kinda paid homage to the two characters that Zeku is related to, which is Guy and Strider, so that is amazing. And I love the "this is Bushin Ryu" line that he said at the end. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic super, to be honest. Zeku is easily the best newcomer in Street Fighter 5, and he's a really well done character. Kolin is up next, and Kolin is just fine. I'm just putting in the seat here. I never was a fan of Kolin's super, to be honest. For me, it's just fine. Like, it's just okay. I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other. I feel like they could have done a lot more and a lot better with Kolin. Her super just doesn't do it for me, to be honest. Guile, and I'm gonna put Guile in the C tier as well. At least I do like the startup animation when he like hulks up and gets all buff. Sonic Hurricane! At least the sound effect and the delivery makes it a lot better than Cody's. But Sonic Hurricane in general for Guile is not a very impressive super. In the EX games where he would actually like summon a legitimate big ass hurricane, kinda like Cody's Tornado super, that one looked cool, but just general big ass Sonic Boom, I never liked it, to be honest. And when in Street Fighter 4, when he had the Flash Explosion super, Flash Explosion for Guile is a much better looking super than Sonic Hurricane. So I wish they gave him the Flash Explosion, but hey, you know, it is what it is. So for that, it goes into the C tier. Necalli for me goes into the A rank. I love how he drags your head and run across. It looks super vicious and it looks really nice. Obviously he have two versions. He has the one where he keeps slashing you, and he has the V-trigger version, and I'm kind of conflicted on which one I like most, but I'm gonna go with the V-trigger one because it combines the element of the absolute savageness of him just dragging you head first on the floor, but also has like the concentrated focus strike when he like gathers the energy and then punches you with it. That looks really awesome as well. It's a really cool looking super, and the end screen looks fantastic. So it's an easy A rank for me. Vega, I'm gonna put Vega in the C tier. I don't love Vega's super. I think he had cooler versions of it in the previous games. I do like the Street Fighter 4 version more. Even though it was shorter and sweeter, it looked more like a Maximum Spider style super, which I do think fits Vega more. The issue with Bloody Rain is that maybe it's due to how it's shot, but I don't feel anything out of it, to be honest. I do like the laugh, and maybe when he ends it and he have like the mask is off, he have a very psychotic look on his face. That makes it look a little bit better, but I think they could have done a lot more with Vega. Like I look at all of these guys above and I think they have better supers. So Vega goes into the C tier. Cammy is an easy B tier. Cammy again is one of these characters who I do think would have done more with. I like both of the supers and both of the ultras from Street Fighter 4 more. Her ultra in this game, or the super, it's a fine attack. It's kind of like a Maximum Spider style attack, but I don't love the ending. I feel like if it ended up in an uppercut, or like when she slams you down to the ground or something like that. Like, you know how Chip's super is in Guilty Gear Strive? It's pretty much the same thing, right? But I love how Chip will just go over there and just bounce you to the floor. It makes it look a lot more impressive. While Cammy's pretty much ends up in Spiral Arrow at the end. And while it does have it does look tough, I don't love it. I think if it ended in her slamming you down, it would have been an easy S tier super, but for now, I think it's kinda disappointing. Ken also goes into the B tier. Ken is obviously Ken's super is a very traditional super for Ken, but I do think he had better versions of it previously. I much prefer the Street Fighter 4 version, where it's pretty much like a bunch of tattoos at the end, but then he does like one big roundhouse kick at the end. It's like one more for good measures, like if you played the Street Fighter 4 version. So I think Ken is kind of lacking. I think Ken had better version. And speaking of that, I'm gonna put Lucia in the A tier actually. And Lucia's super is a better version of Ken's super. I think if you compare both of them, the actual cinematography and how the entire idea behind the supers, they are both very similar. Lucia and Ken pretty much have the same super, but Lucia have a much better startup animation. Lucia's the flash animation before she starts her super, that one is my favorite in the game. And if you could put these two supers side by side, you will see that the idea behind them is very similar, but Lucia has the better end screen, and it does look better, especially because there is an explosion at the end that makes it look cooler. So I do think Lucia got the better version of Cammy. Next up we got Dan, and funny enough, this is actually funny enough, I actually think Dan has one of the best supers in the game. And I know this might sound completely surprising to a lot of you, but what I love about Dan's super is that honestly, it is the most believable series of strikes in the game. Like, if you look at all of the other characters who like hits you a lot, Dan have the best choreographed and the most believable series of strikes. And it's kind of funny that Dan have a super that looks this good, but he does actually. And his super is amazing. I honestly love it. And the same goes for Sagat actually, and Sagat's pretty much the same as Dan. And I do think Sagat is the best version, that it's probably the best super he have ever had. Like, obviously you have the Tiger Genocide or the Tiger Destruction and that style of super, but in Street Fighter V it is the best one. And I love the Muay Thai kick at the start. When he's kicking you, he's kicking the shit out of you. Like, they are super stiff kicks, and then at the end, Tiger Rampage! Like, the voice line is amazing, and the end screen for Sagat is amazing. It's amazing. Like, it's one of the better KO screens as well, so I love it, to be honest. I think Sagat has one of the best supers. And next up is Honda, and Honda goes into the A tier. Speaking of characters sharing a similar idea, like I said previously, Lucia and Ken are pretty similar. Honda and Chun-Li are very similar as well. If you really look at these two supers combined, they're pretty much the same idea, right? Honda or Shun, they will both do a strike at the start, and then they will hit you with a signature 100 hand slap or lightning legs, and then end up with a big strike. And even the KO screen is very similar, but this one time Chun-Li is kicking you, while the other he is slamming your face. So they are very similar, but I do think the cinematography for the Honda one and how it's shot looks cooler. It's a lot more clean, and you get to see the strikes, and the camera looks really dynamic. So I am much more of a fan of the way Honda's super is shot compared to Shun's. And Blanka for me goes to the C tier. I don't understand Blanka's super. I don't get it. So first of all, he obviously strikes you once and then he bounces off of you. But the way it's shot, I don't understand if he's like bouncing over you 3 times and they're just showing it from a different camera angles, or if he's bouncing once and then it's like repeated multiple times. It's honestly very confusing, and I think for a super or a critical art, it should be clear what is actually going on, right? But it feels really weird for me, so I don't know. That's why I never liked the Blanka super. The hit at the end looks really cool, and I do think it talks a little bit too much during it. But overall, I mean, it's not awful, but I do think maybe you should put it in the B tier. Maybe it's not as bad as some of you guys. You know what? No, let's keep it this. It's Blanka anyways. But I think it could have been better. G is obviously gonna be in the C tier. Obviously it is decent because you get the meme at the start, Bawa to the ass, or the lighted up lines, and it is a very functional super gameplay wise. But obviously, like, looks wise, he just points to the ground and there are a couple of explosions. I think they could have done a lot better with G, to be honest. It's not a bad one by any means, but they could have done a lot more. They could have done a lot more with a character like G. Abigail is next, and Abigail for me goes into the high A ranks. Abigail looks fantastic. Abigail's super looks fantastic, and I love it when you especially cancel into it out of Abigail punch, because Abigail punches usually throw you flying away, but then he slams you down there and then picks you up and then hangs you on the ceiling and then beats the shit out of you. Like, if you start the super out of a cancel from Abigail punch, it looks even better. Like, even so, more so because of the startup animation, the flash animation. So I do think it's a fantastic looking super. It's very creative for a big guy, and I do love the end screen where he he smashes the screen. It's a very cool super. Sakura is a B tier one. I think Sakura's is just fine. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. It is one of the better supers that she got in some of the recent games, but it's not wow. It's not amazing. It's not, you know, it's not great. For me, it's just there, right? It's not awesome. Urien is up next, and I do think Urien actually have one of the better. He have one of the better non-cinematic supers. Urien's super is really cool because first of all, I love how the actual move looks, right? Where it's like a big beam, big energy beam. It's obviously a homage to his third strike entrance, and I do love the cinematography, like the startup animation, where he's like there was a flash animation. I guess I'm gonna call it the flash animation. The flash animation looks pretty amazing. The pose he does at as he's doing the move itself and at the end when he's like punching the earth looks really cool. I do think it's one of the better non-cinematic supers in the game. Speaking of non-cinematic supers being good, this one is gonna sneak its way into the A rank. Balrog's super previously was very lackluster. It was fine, but it wasn't really special. What made it so special now is after the recent update, I think it was the season 5 update, when they added a screen freeze and a zoom in and screen shake when the punch connects from a close distance, right? It made the super now have much more impact. It looks much more impactful now. It's pretty much a bionic arm, and these supers can be really cool, but the zoom in effect and the added bonus of the screen freeze and screen shake makes it a lot better. It makes it look like a super hard punch, which I really like. I think it's probably one of the better bionic arm style supers that I've seen in video games in the recent memory. So it's really cool for it. Like they maximized its potential for the most part. Juri obviously goes to the D tier, unfortunately. Juri is obviously an amazing character, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I was never the biggest fan of Juri. As a matter of fact, I actually used to dislike her, but after I made the Juri guide and I played with Juri for a little bit, she grew in me. Juri grew on me a lot actually, and I am now a fan of Juri. So I wish they had given her a better super. Obviously, compared to what she had in Ultra Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter 4 in general, she had much better supers, so that kind of sucks. That really sucks. Laura is up next, and I do think Laura deserves to be in the B tier. Obviously, the super itself isn't amazing, but I do love the KO screen at the end. I think it's one of the better looking KO screen. If it's not glitching out, it is one of the better looking KO screen at the end. Obviously, back then, Blanka wasn't in the game, and it was kind of like a cute reference to Blanka. So I get that, and like I said, I do love the KO screen at the end. I think it's pretty cool. Sim is up next, and you know, obviously Sim has the worst super in the game. There is zero flair in Sim's super, right? Like obviously, I do think we need to make it previous tier, add the row below, right? And we're gonna call this the Sim tier, and put Sim in there. Right? I do think he single-handedly has the worst looking super in the game. There is no redeeming qualities to it. Even like gameplay wise, it's not even like a super set play heavy super like his ultras from Street Fighter 4. These have more set play functionalities. This is one you pretty much use as a combo ender for the most part. There are very few setup play options, so I do think there's no redeeming qualities to this super. Next up is Gill, and unfortunately Gill got the short end of the stick. I really dislike Gill's super in this game, and it's such a shame because Gill always had some of the coolest looking supers in Street Fighter. Gill has always had some of the best. Here it's just a back suplex, but it's very confusing. The camera work is very confusing, the delivery is very confusing, and I'm very surprised they never adjusted it, because when you look at Street Fighters in general, it's obvious that there are characters that Capcom care about, but they care about how they present it. And I do think Gill is one of them, to be honest. Gill is one of the better animated characters. He looks amazing, the model is really cool. But I'm very surprised that they gave him this critical art. It's honestly one of the worst. And the bad thing about it is that I think even the V-Trigger 2 command grab or the running command grab, both of them would have been a much better basis as a super. Like, I would have loved if his super was pretty much like him doing multiple like hits, then maybe going for the big SBDs that will like plant you on the floor. I think that would have been amazing. Or even like doing some variation into the running bear grab where he like plant you like that. It's a very cinematic attack. I think they really missed something special with Gill. It's pretty unfortunate, to be honest. Next up we got FANG, and FANG is just kinda hilarious, to be honest. I'm gonna put FANG as well in the B tier. I don't know what, let's put FANG in the C one. FANG obviously could have been amazing, but they really didn't deliver on him. He's a character with an interesting concept, and I do like the whole flight thing. It's cute in a stupid way, but it's just too silly. It's just too silly. One of the cool things about it is that you can kinda combo after it, which makes it pretty unique in that way. It's one of the few supers in Street Fighter V that in some conditions you can combo after it, but obviously as a super it's very very silly. So, but I guess it fits the character, so I don't know. Not really the biggest fan. Next up we got Birdie, and Birdie for me goes into the S tier. Birdie obviously have one of the best looking supers in Street Fighter V. I do think it's fantastic. I love the cinematography of it. It's shot very well. It's very clear what's going on. It's very creative. And the end screen where he's planting you and you can see the chain. And the chain actually, like the end of the chain, this changes depending on the costume. I do think these are some very nice touches. It's timed just right. So it's a fantastic super. It's a fantastic super all around. Karin for me goes into the B tier. Karin is just fine. I do like the 1-inch punch style of attacks, and I do like the taunt at the end, the laugh, but I think they could have done a little bit more. Like, I don't think the series of strikes into just the 1-inch punch looked cool. Like, I think the Street Fighter 4 Fei Long version looked a lot better, where he like do a bunch of strike and then ending up in the 1 punch. Or the 1-inch punch. I think that looked a lot better. So Karin's is a little bit lackluster. If it had a little bit more impact before the 1-inch punch thing, it would have been a lot better. Next up we got the Ibuki, and for me Ibuki is an S tier super, easily the best super she had in my opinion, even though Ibuki actually had some cool supers in the previous games as well. Like, I think Ibuki have always had some pretty nice supers, but I love the whole ninja signs that she does, and then she does the Rasengan pretty much from Naruto, and it's shot really well. The angles and just how it's shot is fantastic. Easily an S tier super, easily one of the very best. Now, for how much I dislike this character, I gotta admit that his super is actually pretty nice. I obviously never liked it. He's a character that I genuinely never liked. But his super is looking pretty cool, right? It have a little bit of homage to Dudley, and I love that he's like doing a really cool series of strikes, and it does look like the psycho power is helping him as well, so that is actually pretty nice. And I love the final uppercut, especially when like it zooms in as he's about to finish and the KO screen on it looks pretty cool. So I do think for Ed, it's probably as good as it's gonna get for him. It's a very strong super for Ed. Nash is up next, and Nash again goes into the A tier. I love Nash's super. Obviously it's one of the earliest one we have seen, but I do love the fact that he just teleports behind you and the character is like, where is he? And then he just does this, the vertical sonic boom. And one of the really cool things about it is that the end screen looks fantastic. the end screen, the KO screen. I love that you still see the sonic boom there as he's KOing you. So it looks amazing. It's obviously one of the better supers. And if you compare him to, for example, Guile, Nash 100% have way better super. And finally we got M.Bison, and M.Bison is an easily A tier super as well. Bison had a fantastic super. I genuinely like the idea that they made Psycho Crusher his super. Obviously they give him back Psycho Crusher as a special move, but when they made it a super, they made it really special. Like for example with Cody. Cody obviously has a criminal upper, like they took this move and they made it his super, right? But it's just the special move, while with Bison they gave it a lot of setup, it's really cinematic, and if you have the Japanese voice acting, the ultimate 2, Psycho, Kirasha, and then the laugh and then ha 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 ha, and the other guy is being splat on the wall. It's fantastic. They took the Psycho Crusher and made it as epic as it possibly can be, so that is really cool. And that pretty much brings us to the end. Obviously there are a ton of characters in this game, ton of critical arts. Let me know what you think, which ones are the best ones for you and which ones do you think are lacking. I will be leaving a link to the Patreon page and the Discord server page in the description below. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe.